This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, let's talk about the running back room today. So far, we've talked about edge rusher. We talked about interior defensive line. We talked about quarterback. Now let's review the running back room. And this is a different situation in the running back room than the Cleveland Browns have been in the last few years, because this is an area where the Browns, for a very long time, might have been one of the deepest in the league, if not the deepest in the league, with two all-pro caliber running backs. This year, it's a lot different. There's still Nick Chubb, but behind Nick Chubb, there's not anything proven behind him. Now, that's for a number of reasons that we will discuss in this video. And we will see how badly that will affect the room, given the context of the new situation that the room is in. Let's start like we always do with a little bit of an overview. So in this room is Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, Demetric Felton, John Kelly, Hassan Hall, Nate McCary. I think they're probably keeping three running backs. I think two of them are on the team right now. I think Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford are the two that they're probably going to keep. I'm not 100% sold that they're keeping Demetric Felton. I understand that some people see what people hope his skill set is, and I think we need to make that distinction with young players. There is a hope for what this player's skill set is going to be versus what this player's skill set has proven itself to be in actual NFL games. A lot of people hope that Demetric Felton could be this triple threat, third down running back. The fact is the only thing he's proven himself to be in the NFL is a decent route runner and on occasions a decent receiver of the football, but not consistently. So don't know what Demetric Felton's role is going to be on this team, if he's going to be on the team. John Kelly, Hassan Hall, Nate McCary. As much as I feel like we've had John Kelly on the roster, the Browns have had John Kelly on the roster for like 4 or 5 years. Almost it feels like at least since 2020, John Kelly has been on the Cleveland Browns in some capacity, at least during camp. I think he will remain on the roster for camp, but I don't think he's going to make the roster. He'll probably be practice squad again if he still has any eligibility left. If he doesn't, he'll be replaced by either Demetric Felton, Hassan Hall, or Nate McCary. Where do I think they fill that third running back role if it's not going to be one of those four guys already on the roster? I don't think it's going to be any big name. I don't think they reach out to Kareem Hunt or any of the big name running backs that you might know that are on the street right now. I don't think that's what they do. I think it's likely that they pick up somebody who gets cut that we don't really know, that's the third guy on somebody's roster right now, right? I think that's a lot more likely that they just get somebody off waivers to fill that third running back role. If we look at the starting rotation, last year it was Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. This year it's really just Nick Chubb, and then there's a limited role for Jerome Ford and others in this running offense. So a lot of the workload is going to go towards Nick Chubb. And I think I've explained this thoroughly in multiple different videos when talking about Nick Chubb and what his role is going to be. And I don't think it's going to be as diminished as people think. Will the Browns run the ball less? Yes. Does that mean Nick Chubb's going to get less carries? I'm not so sold, because again, in previous years, he's gotten like 65 to 70% of all the rushing carries, rushing attempts, my bad. And I think that's just going to go up to like 80, 85. Like, I think he's going to end up around the same carry number he's always been around. If we look at my early seasons predictions video, I believe I had him getting around 250 to 280 rushing attempts, which is on par for what he's averaged his whole career. What you don't want to see with Nick Chubb, and what I think a lot of Browns fans have to be realistic with, is you don't want the trend to be that his carries go up as he gets older, right? That's a surefire trend to age somebody out. And what was worrisome last year was that they had to run him, 302 times? That's just too much, right? He's only gotten close to 300 previous in his career in 2019, 2022, both the seasons where Nick Chubb has had the most carries, the Browns have won the least amount of games. So not equating those two seasons or saying that the Browns are going to win many games because of that. But what I am saying is that you put 600 carries into two under 500 seasons. Nick Chubb is so valuable that you want those carries to happen in seasons where you are playing well. And it's ironic enough, I think a lot of people get this mistaken, but Nick Chubb's the year with Nick Chubb's least rushing attempts, the year that he had the least rushing attempts was 2020. A lot of people will get in that comment section and tell me the Browns don't run the ball enough. They need to run the ball with Nick Chubb specifically like they did in 2020, not realizing Nick Chubb only ran the ball 190 times that year in 12 games. And that's the lowest per game, even if you average it out. If you just want to say, oh, it's 12 games. Even if you average it out, it's the lowest attempts per game he's ever had. So this idea that Nick Chubb's carries somehow equate to wins is just not true. You want to use those carries efficiently in seasons where you have a good chance to win, because what I worry about is that you're going to take a big chunk out of him in down seasons and not really have him later in his career to be the best that he can be. I hope that he hasn't taken so much wear over the last couple of years that he's not ready to feast in this year. But it's Nick Chubb. He's literally never had a bad season. He gets the benefit of the doubt. That's why you feel ultimately really good about the starting position, because he's Nick Chubb. He's probably the best running back in football at this point. We'll see if that turns out. Jerome Ford, again, a limited role. I'd be shocked if he gets over 100 carries. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if Jerome Ford got more than that. Supplemental players. So who are the players on the team that don't play running back that will supplement the run game? Now, we can name every offensive lineman, David Njoku, if we're talking about blocking. But when it comes to just people running the ball that aren't running backs, you're going to have three names probably be in the hat. The biggest name is going to be Deshaun Watson. I expect a big year from Deshaun Watson on the ground. About 88 rushing attempts. I expect Deshaun to be about 5.6 yards per attempt and get about 500 yards this year. And probably a good amount of touchdowns, right? A handful, 5 to 8 touchdowns this year. So that's going to be your number one supplement. It's going to be from the quarterback position. You're going to get some supplemental runs from Elijah Moore and Marquise Goodwin on end arounds and things like that. Short passing game stuff where it's going to be all yak. You're going to get some of that production there with those three guys. I think you're in a good enough spot there with the supplemental players to where it kind of offsets the lack of depth that you have. And again, in my death analogy, DEPTH, y'all. I'm not talking about death. But in my death analogy, I say there's three levels of it that you can have as an NFL team. You have a spare tire in your trunk. You have a donut. You can have fix-a-flat. Fix-a-flat means you got nothing. Your tire goes flat. You might as well call the tow truck because you ain't got nothing for it. If you have the donut, hey, you got something you could conjure together for a couple of weeks if an injury goes down, especially a major injury. And a spare tire is, hey, if we suffer a major injury here, we could go the whole season without really limping. They're not at spare tire depth anymore at this position. They're most definitely at donut depth here, right? If Nick Chubb goes down, it's not the biggest deal in the world for a couple of weeks, right? You can have Jerome Ford and whoever's behind him and Deshaun Watson conjure up enough of a run game to where you can live with it. Maybe you could sign a Kareem Hunt off the street or Ezekiel Elliott or whoever is on the street. You could sign them. You'll be all right. You know what I mean? But I think most teams have donut death at running back, right? That's why the position is so cheap. And I think if I could jump into the larger conversation around running backs, about if running backs should be paid or not, I think there's a distinction that should be made. Elite running backs, they are worth the money. They're almost always worth the money. It is running backs that aren't necessarily elite, right? Once you go from Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb and Christian McCaffrey to Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. Do you pay those guys, right? I think the efficiency that an elite running back brings to you in the NFL is great. Much greater than the numbers give credit for, right? Because if you're just looking at this from a raw number standpoint, well, this is more efficient than that. But we forget football is a game played by people. There's nothing more demoralizing than it being 2nd and 5 and Nick Chubb getting 8. How many times did it happen to the Browns last year where the Browns couldn't stop somebody on 2nd and 5 and it deflated you just watching the game? It happened all the time. And if you say it doesn't, I'm calling cap because I saw you on the chat. Okay? It happens all the time. It's demoralizing. It's deflating. And that's just when we're watching it. Imagine if you're on the field and you can't stop it. There is a mental element to having a dominant run game that is very underrated. And I think a lot of these diehard analytics people who will die on the hill about running backs, which I think is a very stupid hill to die on, because it's not like even the ones that get paid are that expensive. Like, I think it's dumber to pay wide receivers $35 million than to give an elite running back $15 million. Like, you ever notice they pick and choose which contracts they think are stupid or not? It seems very arbitrary because it is. What makes a wide receiver who maybe can impact the game on a pass play as one option worth $35 million, but a running back who has complete control over where they go over the ball when it's handed to him worth $18 million? Tell me how that makes that much of a difference. Are wide receivers that rare? Because you can make the argument, well, you could get a good running back in the 2nd round. You could get a good running back in the 3rd round. That argument's been made to lower the value of running back. Okay. Have there never been good 2nd round wide receivers? Oh, it happens all the time. Good 2nd round wide receivers, good 3rd round wide receivers, good 4th round wide receivers, good 5th round. Well, what's the big difference in the position group? You know what I mean? I don't get it. I don't get it. I think this is where people get stuck in efficiency land, in numbers land, and they forget that football is not an electronic game. It's an actual game. And they get mad when I point this out, as if I'm not forward thinking with the analytics. Like, I'm with them on a lot of this stuff. But where I'm not with you is when you try to replace the science of watching football, the science of knowing the psychology of the game with numbers. That's just you trying to overcompensate for your misunderstanding of the levels that the game is played at. So when we talk about running backs getting paid, yeah, Nick Chubb deserves to get paid because can't nobody do what Nick Chubb does. You can't draft somebody in the 3rd round to be Nick Chubb. No, you can't do that with Derrick Henry. You can't do that with Christian McCaffrey. You can't do that with Saquon Barkley. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't they be worth the money? The issue with running back is the same issue with almost every other position in the NFL. And I think this is a larger issue than just running back, which is it's so much easier to get average level play in the NFL. It is so much easier. There used to be a whole lane for an average football player. Like dudes like Andre Davis, linebacker for the Browns back in the day, had a whole career here. He was never better than average, but he had a whole career. Like getting those average level players at linebacker, getting those average level players at corner, getting those average level players at wide receiver, running back, in some positions on the offensive line has never been easier, has never been cheaper. So less guys are able to become vets at those positions because they're constantly being churned out for younger rookie contract players. That's what's happening, right? It's not necessarily because running backs are not valuable. It's just that running backs, like many other positions, you can replace with somebody younger and cheaper if they're not elite, right? But that conversation has nothing to do with Nick Chubb. It has nothing to do with the elite running backs. And if a GM messes up and acts like it has something to do with one of those guys, they're going to miss that player. They're going to not sign that player and look like an idiot. But that's my 2 cents on the whole. Should running backs get paid or not? It depends on if you're elite. I honestly, and if we want to change what's going on right now with the teams being able to churn things out, then you need to adjust the salary cap rules, or you need to adjust the rookie wage scale stuff, right? A lot of that rookie wage scale stuff was done by veteran players because they were mad that rookie players were getting money early in their career. Well, all that hating hurt them. Because now those rookie wage deals, those rookie wage scale deals are being used to push out your middle class. So probably should go back to the drawing board on that one. But that's just why this whole conversation is being had. And every once in a while, some dude in a suit will take it to its extreme and go, Saquon Barkley, we don't need him. Nick Chubb, we don't need him. Who cares if they're elite? They play running back, because a lot of these dudes making decisions for these teams aren't that much smarter than people you argue with on Twitter. I'm just going to put that out there. Not everybody who gets to the NFL in the leadership position deserves that position because of their pure accomplishment in the sport or their pure knowledge in the sport. Some of these people just ain't good at their job. It's true. But back to the Browns running back room. What would I give the grade for the Browns running back room? I would give it a B+. If they had, again, Jerome Ford's the piece that I think will change things. If Jerome Ford looks like he can be more than just, a bottom level backup running back, then cool. All of a sudden, we're talking about something, but I literally have no idea, no feeling of what Jerome Ford's going to be one way or the other, because I saw so little of him last year in the regular season. I thought he showed some sparks in the preseason. So I'm going to keep an open judgment with him. That being said, open judgment is an open judgment, which means I'm not assuming one direction or the other. Right now, you only have Nick Chubb, and that's good enough to get you a B+. It's almost good enough to get you an A, but you know what? It's an A. It's an A. It's an A. Nick Chubb plus Deshaun Watson as a supplementary option and some Elijah Moore. That's an A. That's an A. Never mind. This is an A. Revised grade. But y'all, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.